As someone who is in Florida, watching as we become one of the worst hit areas for the coronavirus in the entire world, I am I'm almost in a state of disbelief at just how terrible our state government has responded to the pandemic as well as the economic crisis. And those two things, like I've talked about on the show, are intertwined. You cannot separate the two. You can't expect people to stay home and stay safe and lower the spread of the virus if they don't have money coming in to pay for essential expenses like groceries, food, utilities, rent, which is why economic relief coming from the state and federal government is so important. And would you look at that, Florida has, out of all 50 states, our unemployment system has been one of the worst in the entire country in processing claims and giving out benefits. So as you'd expect, people have to go out to make money in order to survive. And that's adding to the spread of the coronavirus. And this isn't an accident, by the way. This is on purpose. And now, in one of the most bizarre and irresponsible actions I've ever seen from a government, Ron DeSantis and Florida, as well as many other states in this country, have decided to act like the coronavirus just doesn't exist anymore. And they are going to reopen everything as they have been doing. They've opened bars, they've opened restaurants, nightclubs. Just this weekend, Walt Disney World decided to open up, all while we are at the height of outbreak here in Florida. The day Disney opened, we broke a record for coronavirus cases in the United States and really out of any area around the world, since the US does have the worst outbreak. So we reported more cases than even New York on their highest day. And that's the day we decided to reopen Walt Disney World, which will undoubtedly lead to an exponential growth in the spread of the virus. And as it stands right now, there are about 240,000 confirmed cases in Florida, 4,000 deaths. But like I've been saying for a long time, and this is why I hesitate to even report the numbers, this is bare minimum. The reality is those numbers are multiple times higher here in Florida and around the rest of the United States and around the world. So we are at the height of pandemic, and the Florida government is just going to pretend like this problem doesn't exist. And more than pretending that it doesn't exist, they're incentivizing people to go out, go to work, go spend money, and doing that and knowing that inevitably it's going to lead to more people getting the virus and it's going to lead to more people dying. And outside observers of Florida politics see all of this happening and they think that, well, this is what's going to happen. The Florida elected a bunch of Republicans who are incompetent and don't know what they're doing and are actively making the situation worse. So this is a result of electing Republicans in Florida. But that is missing the bigger picture here. And it's something that, like I said, a lot of people who don't live in Florida will not understand. And it's that Florida is really, it's a corporate state. The corporations, all the different industries that reign supreme in Florida, they rule over state and local governments. Florida is a cautionary tale of what can happen when there's complete corporate capture of government. Policy and legislation do not get passed in Florida unless they get the approval of giant multi-million-dollar or multi-billion-dollar corporations. The tourism industry basically owns the Florida government. And I don't want to get too into this on this specific video. I'm planning on doing a separate video about the stranglehold that the tourism industry has on the state and local governments. But just for example, Disney World, last year alone, donated $28 million to state politics in Florida. $28 million. And we're used to talking about numbers like this we're talking about federal and national politics on the show and federal policy. So we're used to talking about large numbers like this. But to think that one corporation is spending this much in a single state is unreal. It takes a lot less money to influence politicians at state and local levels than it does at the national level. So to be spending that much money in 1 year shows you the amount of power that this one corporation has over the direction of policy and legislation in Florida. You also have Universal Studios, which is another huge theme park, massive political contributions every single year. You also have all the hotels that both these tourism attractions own, also a huge constituency here in Florida. Then you have the real estate developers, the restaurants, the healthcare industry. Basically, the entire economy in Florida is service industry jobs. And just a handful of titans of industries from like I said, these all these different industries basically has complete control over the state and local political system. And their power and influence has grown so much over the years that it's gone from them getting all types of special exemptions and special treatment from local governments and favorable deals and stuff like that. It's gone from that to where state and local governments won't even legislate on the most basic issues if it goes against the interest of these giant corporations. And that is a recipe for disaster, especially when you get a situation that we're in now, an emergency crisis situation where it's supposed to be all hands on deck. The government needs to be pulling out all the stops in order to serve the people, which is their job. Do everything in their power to make sure that everyone in the state is secure financially, as well as dealing with a biological threat and dealing with the pandemic to make sure that everybody's safe. That's what needs to be happening right now. That should be the first, second, third priority of every state government in this country. But that's not the case, and especially here in Florida, though the concerns of the people, what's best for the people, does not cut the top 5 or even the top 10 concerns of the government or priorities of the government. And you see that in every single step of the way that they've decided to handle this pandemic and the economic crisis. Every single decision that they have made, it's clear that the intent behind it wasn't public safety. It wasn't the public good. The intent behind it was purely, okay, how do we maximize profit for business? In a sense, the state government in Florida has merged with the corporations, and it has that corporate mindset of how do we maximize profit. That's their concern. Like I said, the concern isn't serving the people. It isn't making sure everybody's safe. It isn't making sure people are financially secure. It isn't making sure that people are thriving in their state. They've merged with the corporations, and their first, second, and third priority is how do we maximize profit for the shareholders and executives. And it manifests in every single way you can possibly imagine. The unemployment system, the reason why it's such an utter debacle, it's not on accident, it's not incompetence, it's on purpose. So for years, this has been a scandal going on in Florida for years. The unemployment system doesn't work on a regular day when it isn't being overrun by millions of people filing unemployment claims. On just a regular day outside the pandemic, the system does not work and is exceptionally slow. It crashes. It does not process claims. And the state built this on purpose. Like I said, they've merged with the corporations, and it's in the corporate interest that these websites don't work. One, because employers have to put in a lot of money for the unemployment insurance. So the state on purpose has made it impossible to almost impossible to navigate the unemployment system. The office is understaffed, unresponsive. The website, the way the website was created, they used a coding language that hasn't been used to do anything else since the 80s. And that's why it crashes all the time before the coronavirus pandemic. So they built it on purpose so that it doesn't work, so that less people can file their claims, and corporations and businesses have to pay less into the unemployment insurance. And now this has become even more useful during the coronavirus pandemic, because like I said, People are desperate and they need money. So if they can't get access to economic relief from the government, they have no choice but to go to work and get money to put food on the table for their family. So what do you know? Unemployment isn't working. We can't process the applications. We're slow at sending out the money. Some people are waiting 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Oh, looks like you have no choice but to go along with this completely asinine and irresponsible reopening, because you have no choice if you want money to pay for basic needs. And just the entire idea of reopening, it had nothing to do with, oh, we think that, we got this under control. We think we got a handle on this. So we can safely reopen the country, the state, and have the economy going along again, all while we're keeping people safe. That's not why they reopened at all. That wasn't even anywhere near one of the metrics that they used to decide whether or not we reopen. The absolute only reason why we're reopened has nothing to do with it being safe. It's because the corporations have been out of business for too long. It's cutting into their profits too much. And they told the state government, look, man, fuck it. I don't care. Hundreds of thousands of people can catch this deadly virus. Tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 people die in Florida. I don't care. We've been closed too long. We need to reopen business and we need to have them spending money. So like I said, the state has merged with the corporations. And in a crisis emergency where public safety should be paramount, it should be paramount. The government, who are supposed to serve and represent the people, they decided, you know what? Fuck the people. The corporations need money, so let's send all these people out there to die. Knowingly send people out to catch in the midst of a deadly pandemic where we're being rocked worse than any country in the world. They're going to send people out to spend money at businesses, at bars, at nightclubs, at restaurants. Knowing it's endangering public safety, they're going to send people out to do it anyway, just to put money in the corporations' pockets. That's what's really happening here. Because there's no other way to explain, rationalize, or justify starting the reopening process while we were at the height of infection. The day that they launched phase 1 of reopening, Florida hit record numbers of coronavirus cases. Record numbers. Broke the record for confirmed cases in a single day. That was day 1 of reopening in Florida. And now Disney decides to reopen this weekend. What do you know? We also broke another record, but this time we broke a record not just for coronavirus cases in the state, but coronavirus cases in the entire country, more than New York at their height, and that means more than anywhere else in the world at their height. That's when we decided to reopen Disney World, which, like I said, it's undoubtedly going to lead to exponential growth in the amount of cases that we have in Florida. And like I said, they're risking public health, public safety, all to benefit corporations and the bottom line. This is incredibly immoral. And I cannot adequately describe this and put this into words. This is so deranged. It might even be criminal at this point. Because like I said, they're willing to let people die, not because they think it's best for the overall health of the country, or they think that they have it under control. No, they really are going to let untold amount of people die just to benefit corporations in the bottom line. So that's what's really happening in Florida. And I've seen a lot of people yesterday on Twitter, Ron DeSantis needs to resign, was trending on Twitter, but I don't disagree with that. I think he does need to resign. His response has been abysmal, and he's at every step of the way making the situation worse. I do think he needs to resign. But the idea that we get Ron DeSantis to resign, and then what? Now we're on the right track to dealing with the coronavirus crisis. If Ron DeSantis resigns, it doesn't make anything better. It just doesn't. The state is going to continue in the direction that they've been going. and whoever replaces Ron DeSantis will be just as in bed with corporations. So I do think there needs to be a public pressure campaign, but the only demands cannot be just to have Ron DeSantis resign. The public pressure campaign in Florida needs to demand that the government provide economic relief to its citizens, and it needs to demand an adequate response to the pandemic. That's what the pressure needs to be. It needs to be on making sure that anybody, all the essential workers who have to work, that they have the necessary equipment to protect themselves. The pressure needs to be to get hazard pay for those essential workers. The pressure needs to be on a program to make sure that every single person in this state has access to a mask, because those masks are what limits the spread of the coronavirus. Those masks are what saves lives. So that's what the pressure campaign needs to be on. Actual, what needs to be done? All right, let's pressure the government to do that. But just saying Ron DeSantis needs to resign, and whatever happens after that, I'll let the state continue to figure it out. We're still going to be in a disaster. We're still going to be in a crisis. So this has been a maddening experience, because it's like nobody else is willing to acknowledge how dire the situation is. So, I mean, I guess I'm going to be talking about this more on the show, because I'm witnessing this firsthand, and this is my state becoming the worst affected area in the entire world in terms of the pandemic. So I haven't talked much about the actual biological threat, but I think I'm going to have to more now, because it's out of control and I'm watching this firsthand.